Chapter 20. 30 years from now. Suddenly, a giant ball of blue lightning exploded in the southern end of the busy Midwestern city. George and Harold looked around them and saw the familiar sights of cars and houses and fast food restaurants. "We're home!" cried George. It sure seems that way," said Harold. "But how come everything looks so old?" "Because we're not back where we started," laughed slightly younger Tippy. "We're 30 years in the future." Why do we come to the future?" asked George. "Because," said Tippy, "the last time I got rid of Captain Underpants, the whole world was destroyed. I wanted to make sure that the world could survive the next 30 years without him. And it looks like it can." Tippy marched over to the elementary school and placed George and Harold and their two pets on the ground. "Get comfortable, boys," said Tippy. "I'm about to destroy Captain Underpants once and for all. And I want you kids to have the best seats in the house." George and Harold looked in horror as slightly younger Tippy began knocking Mr. Crump around like a beanbag. "I can't watch," said Harold as he petted his pet pterodactyl, who seems to get sicker. Sewell scrambled around the playground, finding twigs and branches and leaves, and waving him into his nest to help him keep Crackers warm. "Remember," said George, "if we ever get out of this mess, we're going to straighten up and start acting like grown-ups." "That's right," said Harold, as he placed Crackers into a warm nest that Sewell made. We're going to be responsible and mature from now on." As Tippy kicked Mr. Crump around like a soccer ball, George and Harold got distracted by the loud commotion behind them. Two teachers were yelling at students on the playground, introducing them all to stop paying attention to French struggle raging about them. Raging above them, and demanding that they straighten up and start acting like grown-ups. As the intense, the obnoxious teachers screamed louder and louder, hurling threats and insults, and curious students would cheery students. "Boy, I sure wish those two teachers would chill out," said George. "I know," said Harold. "You're yelling so loud I can't even hear the fight." Suddenly, a rusty green 2034 Honda Chevrolet pulled up into the parking lot, and a familiar-looking character come storming out. It was Mr. Crump, only this was a 30-year older version of Mr. Crump. He was winkier than George and Harold were used to, with a suffery little white beard and mustache, and pants pulled up in his armpits. Mr. Crump marched toward the playground, opened his mouth, and screamed 4 words that sent shivers down George's and Harold's spines. "Mr. Beard and Mr. Hitchens!" George and Harold froze. "Oh no!" whispered Harold. "Oh, Mr. Crump recognized us!" "What are we going to do?" asked George. get out of this mess? Old Mr. Crump marched toward George and Harold, getting closer and closer as they shivered in horror. Then old man Mr. Crump walked past George and Harold, continued walking toward the playground. Mr. Beard and Mr. Hutchins, he screamed again. Get those kids inside right now! Who is he talking to? Asked George. I have no idea, said Harold. Finally, the two screaming teachers turned around.